Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Life Health Show. Today, I'm doing a rebroadcast of an interview I did over 10 years ago with Peter Ragnar. He's a generous, kind man who's just has great information in this interview. And I recently been in touch with him. Just check up on him. I like to check up on my interviews I've done, how people are doing. Now, he's not open to doing a new interview. He's just resting and just taking it easy in life and not doing any more interviews. But I assure you, based on his words, he's doing wonderful. His health is great. He still has the strength of an athletic man in his 20s, and he's just doing great. I'll post some pictures here to show you how he currently looks. But this interview is great information that he still sticks to, and I think it's important to listen to what he's saying. I'm going to put a copy of his link to his website below. His books are still for sale, so check them out. Remember, this interview was posted on the Real Life Health Show over 10 years ago. And it's wonderful, so check it out. So today we got a very special guest, Peter Ragnar. Peter, why don't you say hello to the Real Life audience and just explain a little about who you are and what you do?
Oh, Paul, that's... I've been sitting on a mountaintop in the southern Appalachian chain of mountains for the last 30 years, just basically working on myself, writing books, of which I have 27, and numerous courses on not only physical fitness, health, nutrition, herbology, everything to do with human development and, seeking a compassionate and excellent life.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, not many people know this, probably watching, but you've been a big voice in the health movement for a very long time on your little mountaintop. You're getting this message out to the people that are serious about their health. Now, tell everybody what you do with your wild foods and just teaching people that they don't have to have all these big supplements and spend a lot of money. They can live off nature and find ways to use nature to help them heal.
You're right, Paul. That has been a big part of the message that just seemed to grow spontaneously out of my heart. I've noticed that a lot of the things that many people consider weeds weren't weeds at all. They were absolutely nutritious vegetables growing wild that you didn't even have to worry about the bugs. They didn't have to be sprayed. They didn't have to be cultivated. All that was required was that you simply tuned in to where they were and blessed them, and they blessed you. And that was one of the reasons I wrote the book Alive and Well with Wild Foods. Not only is it a survival guide in times of crisis, but it's a nutritional banquet of the highest value that charges our life with the life force that we all require.
Well, I know that, the only food that's better than growing our own food is the wild edible herbs that are in nature. And you talk about the survival times, which seems like more and more it's coming soon. So I want to encourage people to get this book, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But a lot of my crowd is interested in a raw food diet. So explain people your history of how you learned about it, and are you 100% raw? Why don't you tell people a little about that?
Okay, well, it's something that we naturally gravitate toward. It's pretty much our natural diet. However, with that being said, I have been, basically high raw for the last, let's say, 60 years at least. And, there's been times through that time period where I have experimented with other types of diet. I've added, in periods of time, I added raw goat's milk, raw eggs, and a few things like that. Though at presently I don't consume those, but I find that when you do the most amount of good and the least amount of harm, and you stop making food a religion, you allow it to serve you, you will automatically be gravitating toward the foods that are best for you, and that's what I do. Organic, fresh, raw. Some things I use that are not raw. But all in all, I'm not looking for gold stars. I'm looking for results.
And how long, so you're on a vegan diet right now.
Yes.
And how long was it ago when you first heard of the raw food diet and you started to noticing you were gravitating towards something that was really becoming like a movement in this country?
Well, you know, that's funny, Paul. I didn't know anybody else who was eating raw foods when I started eating raw foods. Actually, I can go back to the point in time when I first became a vegetarian. I didn't know a single other vegetarian, but I did these things because it just seemed like a natural thing for me to do. It is my preference. Those became food preferences, and the healthier I became, the more I wanted more healthier, vibrant foods, foods that infuse my body with life. And I've been doing this, I don't know how many decades, most of my life. So it's an exciting adventure. I get really enthused about that, and especially from the standpoint that I love growing my own foods. And I think one of the things people forget when they talk about the value of food, sometimes we neglect the freshness of the food. I mean, people, you can take carrot juice that carrot juice, put it in the refrigerator, and the next day you look at it and what has happened? It's all congealed down in the bottom. It's not the same food as it was when it was fresh. And it's the same thing you can buy a store-bought organic tomato that's been shipped in from who knows where, or go pick one right from your own garden. There's a world of difference, and there's a world of difference in the vibration. And I think the vibration is everything.
Now, what got you into this? Did you have an illness, or did somebody tell you about eating healthy? What got you into eating healthy?
No, I don't ever get sick. I can't ever remember being sick. I have no ailments. It just seemed to be a natural way of living. There was a time, let's see, if I can go back in the early 1960s. I remember meeting a woman. Actually, I stayed at her home for a while as a long-term guest, and she was in her 80s at the time. And she was into all of these organic foods. She grew a garden. But I can remember this 80-plus-year-old lady doing headstands in her living room. And she would hang from her apple tree she had in the backyard and swing. And I thought, the most amazing woman. I mean, she really impressed me. And she says, now, you're a youngster right now. You're a young whippersnapper. If you do the things that I'm doing, and you start doing them when you're doing it at this age, and I was, right around 20 years old at the time, and she said, you'll be as vibrant as I am when you're in your 80s and 90s or whatever, however long you choose to live. And so I was very impressed with that, and never forgot those lessons.
Well, what are some of the things that she was actually doing, and do you know how old she actually lived to?
I'm not sure because I moved around the country, lost track of her, but I know she lived. This is a long time ago. She lived to a ripe age, but we have. I have a little bit of a different philosophy than a lot of folks. I don't believe that time is toxic. I don't believe that age can kill you. I think that only our habits will kill us. And I believe that we can live as long as we choose to live. Actually, that was the title of a book that I wrote in 1982. I began writing this book called How Long Do You Choose to Live? A Question of a Lifetime. And I thought, this is pretty outrageous to think that you have the power to keep yourself youthful and vibrant. And I said, okay, what if I'm wrong? Well, if I'm wrong and I've added 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 more years to my life, look at all the things I can accomplish. Look at all the people I can inspire and motivate and hopefully set an example for. So I got pretty excited about all this stuff, Paul.
Is there anything you remember that this lady actually did that impressed you that you've done over the years yourself?
Well, just basically the focus on raw, fresh, organic foods. And not that she was 100% raw, but everything that she ate was pretty much out of the garden and it was fresh. And she impressed upon me the need for freshness in foods.
Yes. And so tell us about what your actual philosophy is when it comes to diet, because when it comes to, even though you're not on an all raw diet, when it comes to raw foods, there's so many different people doing it different ways today, and you have so much experience. Is there one way you found to be best for most people, or do you think it should be individualized?
Well, there's so many arguments about the right way, and the way I have found for myself is the right way for me. There's your truth, there's my truth, but there is no the truth. It really it comes down to tweaking your own diet, what is natural. Your body's going to tell you what you need. It's just like muscle testing or behavioral kinesiology. Two people can take the same, let's say, supplement or even a vegetable or a fruit and muscle test it. And one person will test strong, the other person will not test strong on it. And so in that way, a lot of things are very individualized. While yes, I believe that the natural diet goes along with our physiology, and there's a lot of arguments about hygiene and other aspects of how the human body operates in contrast to animal bodies. But nonetheless, the differences really are not that great. Raw, high raw, healthy, organic, fresh, and having a peace of mind that where you're not making issues about every stinking thing that's tearing the human family apart. Just love one another, love yourself, love the ground, love the earth, bless everything you touch, bless everyone you meet, and you live a long and happy life.
Do you see anything being taught in the raw food community today that can potentially be unhealthy, maybe even harmful, that people are teaching that not to be a really good, healthy thing?
Well, anytime you take anything and become fanatical about it, I personally consider that to be unhealthy. I mean, we're all here learning about life and making our way. And everybody is on the path, whether they think they're on the path or not. And I personally feel whatever's happening in your life is perfect at this moment for the lessons that one learns from those things. I remember a period of time in my life when I was doing a lot of radical fasting, and I definitely will endorse the value of fasts. But I remember one time I had gotten so skinny, I thought the wind was going to blow me away. And, I realized that what I thought was for my health really wasn't being very healthy. And so I had to become a little bit more moderate, love myself a little bit more. It wasn't a test of endurance. I didn't have to fast to death's doorway to prove anything. And, so I learned to, and I think this is what happens over the years. You start to mellow. And, believe me, Paul, I used to be pretty radical, one of these radical in your face guys that I had the answers. I knew how it was supposed to be. But then again, I reminded myself that I was young.
So when you did fast, were they water fast or juice fast or a combination?
No, I would fast strictly on water. One year, I remember fasting 4 months out of that year. At another time, I did take a fast that was water and sprouts for 6 months. I got pretty skinny, but I have to laugh about that. But it was good for discipline. It was good for my mental discipline. And when you make commitments to things that you follow through, and no matter what. So I did learn a lot of things.
Did you say physically you might have done more harm than good with during your fast?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
when it comes to fasting today, I mean, do you recommend people go on very long-term fast?
Well, what I've been doing, for instance, on the spring equinox and the winter solstice, I've been doing a 5-day fast on water. I've actually been doing it with. Let me correct myself. With a little lemon juice and a master cleanse, but those are easy to do, and anyone can do that without harming their body. The body just needs a rest every now and then. So fasting 4 times a year like that, I think, is quite beneficial. And as long as when we come off that fast, we don't pig out on everything, even pig out on health foods.
Yes, and do you do any cleanses of particular organs of the body, like colon cleanses or liver cleanses?
I have. My body at this point seems so clean. I don't find a need for it, but it's not that I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in the benefits of doing a colon cleanse, colonics, and also, especially in the environment that most people live, liver cleanses are absolutely essential to eliminate toxins. I mean, especially folks living in large cities where there's a lot of pollutants or factories and things like that. Now, in that sense, I'm sort of isolated away from many things like that. I like to keep my environment as pure as possible. Pure air, pure water, lots of rest, meditation, just spending time in nature.
Now, you did mention pigging out on healthy food. Do you find a lot of people in the raw food movement or the health movement in general get deceived by the food being healthy and they overeat?
Oh, it's easy to overeat. Well, if you've been in the habit of gorging yourself, and I think we rationalize. We say, well, if something is a little bit healthy, if this is a healthy food, how about a lot of it? Well, that all depends on how your body can handle it, and I've even found myself doing things like that when I noticed that I was getting very thin. And I didn't want to get that thin, so I had to start eating more. But there's only so much that you can eat, so you just have to start looking at your diet a little bit differently and tweaking it. And also not burning the candle at both ends. In other words, remembering that the brain, the human mind, can generate enough demand for calories that some researchers have said that the mind will use 85% of the calories of the body. So if a person is stressed, if they're worried, if they have not come to grips with their own inner state of peace, they're going to burn a lot more calories. They're going to have a higher demand for foods. And that is one of the secrets. When a person is at peace, they require less food. And the food that they do receive gives them more benefits, more energy. So those are things I take into consideration. And additionally, Paul, I do work out in my gym, here in my home, and I work out pretty intensely. And I realize that, okay, that requires rest. I need to have regular patterns of sleep. I have to regulate my lifestyle if I want to get the gains and the results that I seek.
Do you think it's possible for somebody to be in a 100% raw vegan diet and maintain a healthy weight long term?
Yes, I do. Though it takes more concentration and being more deliberate about that. I wrote a book, a free ebook that's available for people, how how to gain muscle on a raw food diet. Well, I'm presently rewriting that to add some other aspects of it. I found a lot of the reason that people struggle on the raw food diet has to do with their hormones. And as a man gets older, let's take the average male. When a male reaches their 50s and 60s, their hormonal levels basically start falling off the cliff. I mean, if you take testosterone levels, testosterone just seems to really drop dramatically. And it's interesting that that correlates with a lot of the prostate diseases that men suffer with, impotence, erectile dysfunction. It's the whole gauntlet of ailments that are directly resulting from lower hormonal levels. And I'm not just talking about testosterone, I'm also talking about the human growth hormone that the pineal gland naturally produces. All of these things can be remedied by making oneself aware of the right herbs and things that nature freely provides. I mean, just as a simple example, ginseng. I love good ginseng, and that balances the hormonal levels, as does Voti, Gatakula. There's a whole list of different things that you can use, and I mix these things up into my own little elixir and tinctures that I use on a regular basis. So I think that's been a big part, even when I was 100% raw. Using those, it helped maintain my muscle mass. Now, again, with women, when women get to the point where they start going through menopause, and the ovaries basically start shutting down, and their testosterone levels, and women also require testosterone for the health of their bones, but there's generally a 50% loss of that after menopause. Well, what does a woman do? Well, there are many, many things, Mexican yam, dong quai, different types of herbs and foods that they can add to their diet that will keep their natural hormone levels up. And one of the great ailments of older women in particular is osteoporosis. The bones start becoming very brittle and porous. And and this is also older men have the same problem. They break a bone and fall down. They don't fall down and break a bone. They get that porous. So being aware of that at this stage in life, I think very, very beneficial.
That's great information. Now, getting back to your sleep, how much and often do you sleep, and what do you think is a good amount for the average person?
Well, Paul, I would say that has to do with their mental state and their activity. But personally, for me, I attempt to go to bed, and I don't always accomplish this. I try to go to bed as soon as it starts getting dark, and I get up when it gets light. That's, if I didn't have electricity in my home, what would I do? I would go to bed when it got dark. I would get up when it got light. And for me personally, I find I do my best creative work early in the mornings when I get up. And that's when I write. It's when I do my Qigong practice and my meditations. And my mornings are always spent that way. They have been for the last 30 years or more. And it's sort of gotten to be a pattern. So sleeping at least, for me, 8 hours. And I'm fully rested during that time period. Now, there's some very interesting studies that were done up in, I believe it was the University of Chicago by Eve Van Cotter. And she did a number of studies on people who were into sleep deprivation and how it created accelerating aging. Really rapidly aged people. That, in addition to the fact that people became far more susceptible to heart attacks. I mean, if I have this correct, Paul, she said that women who got less 5 hours or less sleep per night, I believe it was an 82% greater risk of heart attack than those that got 8 hours. Now, there's a whole host of studies that I would recommend that people avail themselves of. They can go online and check these things and see if it makes sense to them. But the bottom line is that we have so much energy that we come into this life with, and it's like a life force battery that if we continue to drain it without recharging it, we basically burn out, and we see burnout everywhere. So I keep that in mind when I consider my sleep.
In the wintertime, it's sometimes dark for up to 12 hours. If you are sleeping less than just the time it's dark, do you feel it's better to get up early when it's dark and go to sleep early, or to stay up later and get up later when it's light out?
Yeah. For me, Paul, personally, I like getting up early. I get up, in the winter time, I get up in the dark. And, there's something about walking with my dogs up on the hilltop here and looking at the stars, even in the pitch black darkness, and sitting there quietly and listening to the early morning sounds of, the world is just starting to stir a little bit, and the birds are singing, and it just, even though it may be cold, your heart is warm. You're warmed by the energy of it all.
Well, for my studies, I found exactly what you said about the electricity, and it would be dark if we didn't have it. And I think people eat too late at nighttime, and it's not healthy to eat when it's dark outside. In your studies of your years of experience, have you come up with anything that says eating at nighttime is not a good idea?
Yes, absolutely, Paul, because there's a whole wealth of information out there that people can access on the web. One of the things that it does is that it spikes your insulin levels, and whenever you spike your insulin levels by eating late at night, what that does, it thwarts the release of human growth hormone, which allows you to sleep. Human growth hormone and melatonin production are affected by insulin. So if you're eating late at night, then you're wondering why you're restless. Well, of course you're going to be restless. And if you're restless and you're wondering why, then you're putting a mental component into the mix that makes it even more difficult to go to sleep. And so what do? You're sitting up there wondering about your problems and other things that are going on in your life, and you're looking at the clock and you're wondering why you're still up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Doc, you ate too late.
So when it comes to the amount of food we eat, and most of us are overeating, what do you think is enough or too little, or how often do you eat? How many times a day, and how big are your meals usually?
Yeah. What I have usually done, and this has been a pattern for decades, I have generally, over those decades, had 2 meals a day. A larger breakfast, and then a smaller afternoon meal, and I might snack, till dark on something. I give myself permission to do whatever I want to do. I mean, I don't have to answer to the food police or anybody else about my habits, but that's generally the way it's been, and that has served me quite well. And so even now, I may have a little bit more through the day. I may snack a little bit more, maintaining my body weight, but I'm not too concerned about my body weight as I am my fat ratio, which about a month ago I had it tested, and it was tested at 6.4% body fat. And so I'm maintaining my muscle mass, losing body fat, and all of this on this type of regime.
Well, you've met a lot of people in the health field and raw foodist. What are some of the old-time raw foodists that you like reading their work, and have you ever met any of them personally?
Uh, I've been up here on the mountaintop for 30 years. I have met I've met people online.
Well, in
Through
terms of reading the books, then, like from the old, did you read the books from the the late 1800s, early 1900s of the raw foodists back then, or have you looked?
I've read, gracious, I've read so much, Paul. I'm just trying to think of the people that really stand out. I can tell you some of the people that may not have been that weren't completely raw that had impressed me. Bernard McFadden, as an example. I remember years ago, I think I was in my 20s when I was reading his encyclopedia on health. Those were very inspiring. And then later years, I was certainly inspired by Paul Bragg, as a lot of people have been. And there's a whole host of people like that. I can remember the great wrestler Hackenschmidt, the Russian Lion, talking about diet and food, and this guy was he's performing feats of strength when he was in his 80s. The mighty Adam was another good example. This is someone who greatly inspired me. But and they were the old time strong men and health advocates.
What did you think of books by Arnold Ehret?
Oh yeah, I love them. I love them. I've got those in my library. Actually, that rational fasting was the one that really inspired me, and that's where I ended up. Really, that triggered a lot of my fasting.
Sure. And you've spoken a lot about exercise, and a lot of people, as they start eating healthier, for some reason, think they don't need to exercise as much. Well, can you explain a little about your exercise routine and what type of exercise you think is good for people in general?
Well, Paul, I believe there's three different aspects to that. And one is flexibility, two is endurance, and three is actual physical strength. Now, without muscles, you couldn't even move an arm or write a letter. So physical strength is very important for keeping our posture, keeping our organs where they need to be, all of those things. So I incorporate all three aspects into my workouts. I just wrote an article. I was just asked to write an article for Hippocrates magazine on physical fitness and intention, which I don't know when it'll be coming out, but they just received it just the other day. But in that, I was making the same kind of point that we need to be flexible enough to function without ending up being stiff. We need to have enough endurance, and endurance can be developed even just walking hills, if that's all you want to do, or just getting out and walking on a regular basis. My personal program is more intense than that. I have a whole gym in my home here with all types of weight and dumbbells ranging from light ones right on up to 158-pound dumbbells, and I've got a huge leg press machine that I can put over 2,000 pounds on, stuff like that. It amuses people that come to visit me from time to time to see all the stuff I've got in there. But those are the things I do. I work out hard enough to definitely get out of breath. And I'm always pushing my limits, but I still don't know what those are.
Well, you seem very healthy and active, and you say you're not dealing with any ailments. Do you mind telling everyone what your age is?
Well, that was something. First, I will say I am a pre-baby boomer. I've been around for a while, and the reason I don't talk about my age is that I don't want it to be an affirmation. And people say, "Well, how old are you?" And I said, "Well, how old do I look?" I said, how old I look, how well I perform, that's how old I am. time isn't toxic. Time can't kill you. My chronological age is irrelevant. Well, the thing I look at, what does the mirror tell me? How well do I perform? Can I outperform a 25-year-old athlete? Yeah, I can. It depends on the sport. I keep myself in peak condition. Actually, Paul, at this point in my life, I have never been so strong. I've never had the endurance. I feel if I closed my eyes, I would believe I had the body of a 25-year-old athlete. Now, obviously, the years have passed, and there is a chronological factor. But people say, "Well, why doesn't he talk about his age?" I said, "Because it's not relevant to who I am."
Okay, so we don't need to know your age. Just tell us what year you were born. No, tell us this. How about this? I know somebody who's 109 years old, and they look like they're in their 60s. Honestly, if you made it to 100, do you think you'd be a little bit more motivated to tell people, look, you can make it to this great age of 100 and still feel and look great? Would that just to help give people an incentive?
I'll make a deal with you, Paul. At that point, I will. And we'll both talk to the whole audience, the whole world together.
Okay. How many years from now will that be? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. That's great. But it's very true what you say. The mirror doesn't lie. Now, tell us here, well, on that basis of the mirror doesn't lie, I personally have interviewed a lot of people and experienced myself, people saying, when I was at my best, I looked my worst, and I was at my worst, I looked my best. So we got to be careful what the mirror says, because, a lot of people out there in the gyms working out look great, but we know that a lot of them aren't really truly healthy, right?
Yeah. What happened? What you do notice, Paul, and I've seen this also in the world of bodybuilding, that a lot of times look at the face and then look at the body. There seems to be a disproportionate connection between the aging of one and the aging of the other. And that really doesn't tell you anything about the organs. What condition, what health are the organs in? Those are things that nobody sees, but affects everything that we do. And, so inner strength, organ health, vitality, the level of life force that you have in your body itself tells everything. And again, you don't have to have huge muscles. You can get equipment to lift anything you need to have lifted, but you do need to have enough vital force in the body, whatever you want to describe that vital force as being, prana, chi, what have you. If that is at a high level and you're replenishing and recharging, you'll live as long as you want to live. As long as you have something to do on this planet, you'll be around.
Well, you talk about replenishing and recharging. Do you take any supplements besides the herbs? I know you take herbs, but do you take any other supplements?
I take some supplements that they're all vegan based, and they're basically like, I'll give you one as an example: sea buckthorn oil. I love that for my skin. I take it internally and externally. There are a number of other little things that I take along that line, but I generally try to focus on what comes out of the garden, what I can pick wild, and certain tinctures and things that I put together for myself.
And as you live on a mountain and more in nature than most people in cities, have you noticed non-dietary connections to health, such as, not using an air conditioner and having an open window, or not having a rug and maybe having a wood floor, or things like this?
Yes. Yeah. Even the clothing that you wear, very few people are aware that, you go to the store, buy a shirt or a pair of pants or a dress or whatever, and put it on, that your body is absorbing formaldehyde and other toxic chemicals. The same thing with the soaps that we use and the colognes or sprays that we put on our body. All of these things have a part to play in our health. And of course, as you just mentioned, in the house, the off-gassing that carpet has. And now, I will tell you, I have had carpet in my house. It's been all ripped out, and I put wood floors in, bamboo, sustainable type of floor, something that is in harmony with the natural environment. So there's a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of little things, and there's a lot of big things that we can do. Using natural organic fabrics. I personally choose, even when it comes to furniture and things like that, to have those things from people I know, personal craftsmen. I want to support people like that. It's just in harmony with my conscience and my view of living an ethical lifestyle.
There's a lot of health machines out today, infrared saunas and domes and other types of machines that are helping people get healthy. Since you live on a mountain and you might not be close to these places, do you own any particular health machines?
I have an infrared sauna, and there are several other things that I have used. I've used vibration type devices. There are several different things like that would help move the lymph through the body. People can go online and check on vibration type machines for exercise. Those are some things that I've used. And I've looked at all sorts of stuff. It's I have the opportunity to have people always sending me something to look at this and look at that, and some things I think are not useful. Occasionally, I find a few things that are quite useful. I'm a big proponent in the use of magnetism, and of course, I use that. That's part of my magnetic qigong course, where I use magnets to help alkalize the body and also recharge the body and make it easier for people to feel the life force energy flowing through their body. So those are certain technologies that I do use.
You mentioned a lot of things you've been doing, and you make sure you get the proper amount of rest. To fit it all in one day, can you give us an idea of your average day on a good day, or what time you get up, when you eat, and exercise, and so on?
Certainly. Okay, let's take an average day. Let's take this morning. This morning, no, since I don't look at the clock, I'm guessing 6:30, 6 o'clock. Might have been 6 o'clock. I got up and I go upstairs. First thing I do is I let my dogs out so they can run. That makes them very happy. Then I will fix my breakfast. This morning I had some raw granola with raw oat groats, with raw organic pumpkin seeds, with sliced peaches from my peach tree, with a big handful of blueberries, and some coconut milk. And that probably is the breakfast I have every single day, 7 days a week. I don't really tire of it. The fruit changes. Like last week, I had fresh blackberries that I've been picking right out of the yard, and they go into the breakfast. And after I have breakfast and settle down, do my qigong practice, write, I'll make a post on my Facebook site, something inspirational, motivational, and then the morning is spent that way until probably noontime. Then we'll have a green drink. I love kale, kale and other greens, wild greens that I can put into the blender, into a Vitamix in this case. And then we also, Katrina and I also love to have what we call kale lemonade, which is kale, lemons, ginger, and some apple, and put that in a juicer, and that's just a really vitalizing drink. And then have a large salad or whatever else we want later in the afternoon. Now, on the days that I work out, I will, in the morning, after a few hours, I will go down to the gym and I'll have a very intense workout. And then I realize that I need several days after that workout to recuperate. So that can be as many as 3 or 4 days before I have my next workout, because I realize that my body, first of all, has got to recuperate from the workout. And then after it recuperates, it's still not time to work out, because I need to allow the body some time to overcompensate for the workout. That allows me to be even stronger on the next workout. And there's a very scientific basis behind all of this. And I did write, I put together a course with a big, thick manual. It's called Serious Strength for Seniors and Kids Under 65. So it's for kids under 65 too. And if they want to get strong and fit, then if they follow the protocol of the book, they will. So then in the evenings are spent reading. I naturally play with my dogs, but Katrina and I, we just spend our evenings reading until we're tired. And when I'm tired, I put the book down, the lights go off, and my eyes close, and I start to think the same routine the following day. So I know it may sound boring to most people, but for me, it's been pretty exciting. I blink my eyes and the decades go past, and I said, "Oh, wow, that's neat."
One thing you didn't mention that so many people include in their day, which I think is such a harmful practice, is television. We don't own a TV here in our house, and what about you? Do you have a TV? And if you don't, tell people the dangers of TV.
I don't watch television. I can't remember the last time I watched a show. The only thing that I do have one that I can play some old DVDs in, but since that hasn't been done, you just reminded me. I probably need to take care of the dust.
Yeah, dust it off and watch my DVDs. So tell us, you have a lot of information. Tell people your website and how they can get in touch with you. Why don't you do that now?
Okay. The website is roaringlionpublishing.com, and you can get to it by peterragnar.com, either one of those. And I do invite everybody to join me on Facebook while I still have room for accepting new people. So they can get a free newsletter, subscribe to my newsletter. It's free, and you'll get some pretty inspiring and encouraging information.
And also, I recommend everyone get your book. I have your books, and they're wonderful. So get to your website. Give them your website again.
It's roaringlionpublishing.com. And you can get to it from peterragnar.com. That's RAGNAR, peterragnar.com, or Roaring Lion, like a big roaring lion.com, publishing.com.
Great. I definitely recommend people to get there. Now, tell us, Peter, in closing, is there anything you'd like to add about what you see going on today with raw foods or in the whole health movement in general?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me, Paul. You know, we're all in this thing together. And when I see bickering or division where I hope people realize that it's only our false sense of self that gets involved, that when we try to make others wrong so we can be right. We're here to love one another. We're here to be at peace with one another, and we're here to make the world a better place. And that means accepting all people as they are. Everyone is where they are as they are today. And that's just the way the world is. And if we accept it with love and just embrace people with an open heart, everyone will have the health that they seek.
Wonderful, wonderful. I just thought of another question I didn't ask about water. How much water do you drink every day?
A lot. A lot.
Great.
I have some of the purest water that you can imagine. It's I got a huge layer of quartz crystal over it, and we did drill through the ground for it, but it's as pure as can be. And I drink a lot of water.
Wonderful. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us on the Raw Life Health Show, and keep up the great work you're doing. And I know I'm going to have a lot of questions. Will you come back again to answer some of the questions we get?
Absolutely, Paul. I greatly appreciate you and the work that you've been doing. And, whether you know it or not, you've been an inspiration to me. And I feel very honored and flattered that you've asked me to be on the show. Thank you.
Well, thank you again, because you're just a role model, and you've been doing this a long time. So everybody check him out, and thanks for joining us. All right, everybody, there it was. That was Peter Ragnar, a great health expert. As I said, his website is below. You can check it out and check out his books. But he's still doing great 10 years after this interview. So whatever he's doing was working for him back then. It works today. So keep up the great work, Peter, and thank you for your time. And everybody else, thanks for watching, for your comments and questions below, and have a great real life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.